Shalom Aleichem, welcome everyone to this program, Erev Shabbos Kodesh Yud Zayin Tevis Tavshin Pei Aleph. So this week I had an opportunity to receive a link to an interview that I did 10 years ago that I didn't know was even online. And this was an interview that I did with Zalman Schachter, who was a student of the Frierdiker Rebbe's in the 1940s in 770, and then was sent by the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, on Shlichus to the city of New Haven to open yeshiva there, and some Rochester, and he identified also with the Rebbe and kept in touch and had yichidus, etc., etc. The reason I made this clip, because people are wondering, is he was 85 years old at the time. This was in 2010. He was 85. And he was on my radar for 25, 30 years since I was a bacher in yeshiva. And I said to myself, it's time to fly to Boulder, Colorado and interview him on my own my own money and time and energy. And the reason was very simple, without any fanfare. Maybe I'll say something that will arouse a tshuva in a person who had such special yachas relationship with the Rabbeim. And at 85 years old, he'll realize that all of those wonderful and special teachings and feelings are important, and it's important to do it in the way the Torah HaKadosh, the Holy Torah, dictates. And I flew out there for that reason. We did a 2-hour interview, almost a 2-hour interview. And I'll share just a few ideas that were not there, that I believe are important for background, and also to understand Lubavitch in the 1940s in America in 770. The Frierdiker Rebbe came to America with the vision and idea to bring Mashiach through Torah mitzvahs in America. And although he was limited by his physical health, but he was surrounded by a tremendous staff, and of course, tremendous son-in-laws, the Rashag, and of course our Rebbe, who at the time was known as the Ramash. And the Rebbe was appointed by the Frierdiker Rebbe to head the 3 organizations. Merkez Liona Chinuch, Melech was called, Kahosk, and Machni Yisrael. And they went into full force, and they turned over the place. And who helped them? The Bacharim, the students of 770. Now, please understand, we're not talking about 300 students. We're talking about 20, 30 students in total. And these students, some of them already had training through Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson, who taught them Chassidus in the 1930s while they were yet at Torah Vodaas. You can read all about that in my book, Torah Vodaas and Lubavitch. And others who were younger became students of Rabbi Jacobson, Rabbi Shmuel Witten, Rabbi Mentlik, and they met Rabbi Avram Pardiz and Rabbi Avram Melia Axelrad. These are all students, Talmidim of the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe, and it made a big impact on them. This impact got these students like Beryl Baumgarten and Yitzchak Groner and the Altines and the Gordons and Zalman Schachter and Shlomo Carlebach and Eli Chaim Carlebach, and the list goes on and on and on, who took to the streets. So when the Frierdiker Rebbe called for Mesiba Shabbos groups to be started on Shabbos, Zalman Schachter and Yossel Goldstein, I believe, or Avram Weingarten, Rabbi Weingarten was my 3rd grade Rebbe, They went out during the week and they put up signs in shuls and on the streets, and don't think they didn't get into trouble. In fact, one of them, Avram Munheit, he put up some signs and he was arrested for 24 overnight. So these chevra, these soldiers, paid their dues. And that's how Mesiba Shabbos started here in Borough Park and in other neighborhoods. Other activities that the Frierdiker Rebbe called for was Mishnah, the study and learning of Mishnayos Baal Peh, to become part of the Chevra Mishnayos Baal Peh, and things like that. And of course, Le'alta L'Gula, Alta Tshuva, and the 3-4 Kol Kairos proclamations that Frierdiker Rebbe came out, and the publication of Akriya Vakdusha. These were all things, I've written quite a bit about this in the books on, Lakewood and Lubavitch and other such books where we talk about these issues as well. So the early soldiers of 770 were a very big asset to the Rabbeim and to Rabbi Chadakov and Rabbi Mendel and the staff as well. Was there opposition? There's always opposition. But they went further. And when they went out, some of these chevra, when they went out to the yeshivas in New Haven, in Rochester, in Buffalo, in Philadelphia, there wasn't much to eat, and there wasn't much money, and they worked hard. They married, they started to have children, and things weren't so easy. But they kept on going. Not all of them. Some came back for various reasons. But by and large, most of them stayed. Rabbi Folgerman in Worcester, Rabbi Herschel Schusterman in Chicago, Rabbi Zalman Posner was hired as a rav in a shul in Tennessee, Nashville, I believe. This was a way of introducing American Judaism with what was called orthodoxy at the time. Now, for the record, it's important to know that Rabbi Shraga Feivel Mendelovich, the dean of Yeshiva Torah Vodaas and a leader in his own right, in 1944, 43 or 44, he opened Torah Masorah, and the whole idea of also making day schools. And this discussion, the interaction between Lubavitch and Torah Masorah, I wrote about in that book, Torah Vodaas, because it's an interesting piece of information and history. So between the Rebbe Rayatz sending his soldiers to start the yeshivas, and Rabbi Mendelovich sending his people to start a few yeshivas, Yiddishkeit Judaism started to blossom in the 40s and more so in the 50s. And our Rebbe, he took in charge, and he just went with it all the way, and he just didn't limit it to yeshiva day schools. But he opened, of course, Chabad houses, and the Sheikh Chabad, and Tzir Agudas Chabad Tzach, and Kfar Chabad was opened earlier in 49 by the Frierdiker Rebbe, but the Rebbe really enhanced all of this. So anyone that had part of this mission was very fortunate. So the question is, how does it happen that someone can drift away from the mission? And the answer is Kabbalah Soil. The most difficult thing is to have acceptance of the yoke of God, to follow what the Torah says, not to allow your innovative mind to run your life. And this is a challenge. And the more intellectual one is and bright, the greater the challenge. And this is, if you think about it, the awesomeness of the Rebbe's personality and character, how such a genius, just let's talk about, forget for a moment being a Rebbe, but just his mind, his genius, and simultaneously having such Kabbalah soil to the Eibishter and to the Frierdiker Rebbe and to Chassidim and to Chabad, that combination is unique. I don't know if you find that combination by any other Rebbe before. And the Rebbe had this. Everyone has free will. And if you're not willing to have Kabbalah soil and follow the script, you can end up in foreign pastures. So to me, the lesson we take from individuals who went through that experience, or today, youngsters who are thinking about these issues, at the end of the day, as we say in Yiddish, es lohnt sich nicht. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Because there is a lot of guilt, shame, anger associated with the trip. So why go that route? So you'll say, well, I might have to compromise on some of my intellectual pursuits. Maybe. But isn't it better to have a good marriage? Isn't it better to have a beautiful family? Isn't it better to be part of the frum Yiddish community that deep down you desire, because that's who you are, and you admit openly, that's who I am. So why go through this anguish? So Rabbi say, it's a special Shabbos. Shabbos Vayechi, Chazak. Vayechi Yaakov Beretz Mitzrayim, Shvas Rishon, the 17 years, 17 Gematria equals Toiv, good. This is the goodness. Why is this the goodness? Because we conclude the entire Sefer Bereshis. And Bereshis is about the Avos and the Imois, the patriarchs and the matriarchs. The foundation of who we are is in Sefer Bereshis. And we conclude it with Vayechi, Yechi. What type of Yechi? May you be alive. Live. Live with Torah. Live with mitzvahs. Live with Hiskashrus and Kabbalah soil to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when you live with this, you have Freilichkeit and Simcha. May Hashem help that each and every one of us have Kol Tuf Sela, only the best, Begashmis and Beruchtis, in the material and spiritual sense, with the coming of Mashiach, when all that need healing will be healed, and all that need Parnasa will receive better Parnasa, and all that need Shidduchim will receive Gewaldige Shidduchim, and any and all blessings. B'Yerushalayim in HaKodesh, b'mheira b'yameinu, Amen v'Amen.